This is not the update that I hope to be giving in this case. With both twins surviving being stolen from their mother and left separately alone in the cold, it was a miracle that the family could be brought back together as one once again. Medically, both 6-month-olds were deemed healthy and released from the hospital. The family would begin grieving only a month later, though, when one of their surviving twins would pass away. You are such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm Brooke Makenna, but today's case is an update on the Thomas twins abduction, where everything in that case is, as well as the tragedy that has occurred between the time of the abduction and today. And it is absolutely the worst possible thing that could have occurred. But it's important to talk about it and to make sure that these twin lives, though short, are impactful. And I also have more information on the abductor and what's going on in her case, as well as some of the footage of some of her criminal history prior to the abduction that has since been released. So let's go ahead and get into the story. Now, if you have yet to watch the full explanation on this case, I will have that video of mine linked down below. It gives you in detail what occurred, but the short recap is that twin infants named Kair and Kason were beautiful. They were sweet, and on December 19th of 2022, they would be abducted after being left in the back of a running car while their mom went and did a DoorDash order. Not too long after, a suspect was wanted for questioning, and then 7 hours since the abduction, Kair Thomas would actually be found in an airport parking lot. He was freezing, but he did end up surviving. However, it would take days of searching to locate his twin. Between that time period of finding the second baby, their abductor would actually be found and arrested, but she refused to tell the police where that second baby was. But due to the bravery of civilians, 68 hours since the abduction, Kason would be found as well. He needed a bit more medical attention and he would be taken to the hospital, but he ended up surviving the kidnapping as well. And that is kind of where I left you in the last case, besides going into way more detail than that and having different interviews from especially the two girls who actually ended up finding Kason. But overall, that is where we left off with the twins. But it would be December 31st. Kason was able to come home from the hospital finally. He was put on medication, he was released into the care of his family, and he was going to have a bit longer of a recovery than Kair did because he was missing for longer and hadn't presumably eaten in that amount of time either. And they kind of had a celebration for the twins, a homecoming of sorts.
Kair, I'm like, Kair's here, because I can't describe how I was feeling. It was a lot, it was overwhelming, but finding Kair, I had some hope. I just prayed, and me and Chaz, we just continued to look for them day and night. We had faith. We had people out here looking as well, so I didn't lose hope. Couldn't thank you more. Thank you so much.
During this party, this homecoming party, the twins were said to be happy and healthy for the most part. They had colds, but they were only minor, especially to what could have happened following the abduction. And their mother, Wilhelmina, was saying that she could not hug them tight enough because she wanted to make sure that they were getting fed, so she couldn't just sit there and, cuddle them. She was making sure that they were being fed, that they were having their medications, that they were getting better. She said she never wanted to let them go again, and their father, Lechez, said,
"It's sitting right here. That's all I need."
But a little over a month later, on January 28th of 2023, officers would arrive at the Thomas residence. Now, I'm not going to give exact address because I do believe they still live there as of this moment. It hasn't been that long, and so I don't think that's necessary. But this was a family who had been in the news a month prior for this abduction of these twin babies. And they were both found separately. They survived. It was a miracle. It was a good story. However, that Saturday at around 10:54 p.m., 6-month-old Kair was rushed to the Nationwide Children's Hospital. He was said to be in a life-threatening condition, and police had been called to the home due to claims of an unresponsive child. Around an hour later, he would pass at the hospital just before midnight. Now, the family did speak to ABC6 about what really happened that night, and the aunt Wilma said that the twins' mother, Wilhelmina, was feeding milk to the babies, and Kair began to choke. Wilhelmina immediately began giving him chest compressions as well as CPR and calling 911. The family said it was a complete accident. They were in a state of shock and were still coming to terms with what had happened. The aunt said that they were living a nightmare for the second time in less than a month, and she was questioning God, why Kair, and that none of it seemed real at all. She asked the community for compassion and empathy while lifting up the family.
I am like in a state of shock for real. Like literally, I really am. I am devastated. I am hurt for Mumu. I am hurt for Ches, the father, you know what I'm saying, of the babies. I'm hurt for Kaysan, you know what I'm saying, his brother, you know what I'm saying, he's a twin. But I'm mostly worried about Wilhelmina, you know what I'm saying. She's been through so much, you know what I'm saying, and the way this social media and everybody, you know what I mean, I just don't want that to take a toll on her. I want her to keep being the great mom that she is, that we love her, we are supporting her. Wilhelmina is an awesome mom. Wilhelmina she does everything to the tip. You know what I'm saying? She's very hands-on with her babies, very overprotective of her babies. So I just want people to know that, you know what I'm saying, she's young, she's, you know what I'm saying, she's trying, you know what I'm saying, but, and she comes from, you know, a lot, you know what I'm saying, she has a story, you know what I'm saying, herself. We're going to continue to pray, we're going to continue to be together, we're going to continue to be there for each other the best way we know how. We are devastated, we are very, very hurt. We've had a long year and long 2 weeks, well, last 2 months with the twins and their kidnapping and the loss of their uncle. So.
And tell me, you know, Wilhelmina, I know she went through so much, you know,
correct,
in the past, you know, couple months. How's she doing in them?
She's doing really bad right now. She's doing really bad right now.
Can you were telling me on the phone, kind of explaining, you know, what happened because you wanted to get it out there just to clear up any kind of misconceptions.
Right.
Just kind of walk me through exactly what happened.
Well, I wasn't exactly right there when it happened. My kids was there, or whatever. So Mama was feeding the babies, and so one of them would start choking on the milk. And that's what happened. She immediately called 911. She immediately started trying to do chest compression and, you know, CPR things to get the baby back, or whatever, at that time. So it was just like an accident that happened, you know what I'm saying, from feeding the babies, and that was it. I would tell him I love him. I would tell him I'm going to miss him. I'm going to tell him that his mom loves him so much. I would tell him all that. You know, we didn't have a lot of time with him, but I would tell him all that. I would mostly tell him how much his mother is really, really going to miss him.
Now, a day later, Deputy Chief Smith Ware would tell the public that Kair's death was a tragic situation, but that the case was still under investigation. The Columbus police claimed that it was too early to determine the manner of death, and homicide detectives were not leading the case at this point, but the officers were hoping that the autopsy would help determine the cause of death, and that would be scheduled for Monday, January 30th. However, around this time, their grieving mother, Wilhelmina, would post to social media that Sunday that her son was actually having a seizure before he died. She said she didn't know what caused his death. In fact, she wrote, "Please let me grieve Kair. We are nothing without you." The family spokesperson said that they were not ready to talk, but they were asking for prayers. Now, if you remember in the original video posted, Kair was actually the first one to be found, and he had less time in the abduction. It was just 7 hours later. He was cold, but they really didn't have any concerns for his health after this. And Kaysan was actually the one who they were really concerned about. But the police weren't actually the ones to find Kaysan. And this was actually done by the two cousins who lived in Indianapolis and had gone out searching on their own. They got the abductor arrested and they located the baby themselves. One of these cousins was named Mecca Curry, and she would post on social media that Kair would forever live in their hearts and that her heart was broken. Now, the local bishop said that he believed that God spared their lives during that abduction, and that after Kair's death, he was heartbroken because he had such high hopes for the family to heal after that. He said that many people in the community felt that Kair was one of their sons, especially the Black community around that area. They truly cared for the twins. They celebrated together when they were found. And the bishop said that he just hopes the family knows that they are just as supported now as they were before, that this could happen to any family. While this tragedy is now at the forefront of this case and the family is in need of love and kind words, there is still a case surrounding the abductor and the punishment that she will face. It's unknown at this time whether Kair's death stemmed from this abduction, whether it was completely separate, but the kidnapper, Nala Jackson, is scheduled to go on trial on March 30th of 2023 this year. She is facing 2 counts of federal charges of kidnapping a minor, which means she could be sentenced to 20 to life. She also, of course, pled guilty to battery by bodily waste after spitting on the officer, and she ended up being sentenced for this to 1 year with 305 days suspended and 60 days in an adult detention center. But something that we didn't know in the original video was that Nala is actually also facing charges of theft and receiving stolen property due to allegedly stealing 2 other cars and crashing them before even stealing the car with the Thomas twins inside. A Franklin County grand jury would indict Nala for these thefts. Now, this would occur the same month that the abductions happened, but it was earlier that month. So the Thomas twins were abducted the 19th. This happened on the 2nd of December 2022 when Nala stole a car in Columbus and crashed it in an intersection in Dublin. The car actually was flipped on its side in front of a school bus with many witnesses. When the crash occurred, someone was said to get out and help her, a good bystander, only for Nala to run out of that car and to run into the good bystander's car and steal it. She didn't get far though before crashing the second car because she would run a red light and ended up being T-boned by a 16-year-old driver who was in the right. She ended up injured. She was taken to the hospital, but the Dublin police footage has been released since and showed what occurred. This was obtained by Dayton 247 News.
We got medics coming to check you out, okay? Did anybody leave this scene?
No.
Okay, so everyone's here.
She was driving.
Okay.
She said she was walking and she was driving the car.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Pump your cheeks out. Raise your eyebrows. Close your eyes.
She said she was a pedestrian, but she just jumped out of the car and
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is stolen. I think it's the problem. I think this vehicle is stolen. So that's what we're dealing with. Okay, she's got a head injury out here. She's bleeding pretty heavily. I'm with her and a nurse practitioner. Was there any other occupants? And where did she steal this vehicle from? Do you have any weapons on you? Okay, where's your ID at?
I don't have any idea. I was just walking across the street.
Okay, no you weren't, and you're not going anywhere. Medics are here to check you out, but you are detained. You are not leaving the scene. Do you understand that?
I'm just waiting on the ambulance.
Okay, they're here. I'm just letting you know you are not free to go anywhere from this scene.
I was just walking. My shoes, they got knocked 100. This is crazy. Somebody just hit me while I was walking across the street. I was just going to go get my dad some coffee.
She has a laceration up here. We're just holding pressure over there. She won't sit down, so I haven't been able to fully assess her, but her cranial nerves are intact as far as I can tell. I can't see any other bleeding, but she won't let me fully assess herself.
Let me get you in the back of the medical.
Okay.
Okay. Hold on a second.
The police were basically saying that this was not an accident. When they arrived on the scene, they were going to charge her with a felony. However, At the hospital, she was heavily sedated and she was still, in recovery, and so she couldn't really be questioned by police or arrested at this time. It was explained that basically this police department would have to wait there, paying officers for guard duty around her bedroom until she was released for the hospital. So instead of that, they decided to send her case to a grand jury, and 6 days later, she was charged with 6 traffic and misdemeanors. But 8 days after that, she didn't show up to court. A warrant was filed for her arrest at that time, but since this was just a misdemeanor case, this wasn't priority, and they didn't go after her or seek her out at all, though they did know that Nala had a prior criminal record for car theft and violent tendencies. This was because all the way back the year prior, in November of 2021, Nala had allegedly been involved in a car theft at the Ohio State University campus. She was charged 2 months after that in January of 2022 due to DNA evidence found in the car. However, this case was dismissed. 3 days after she didn't show up to court for crashing those 2 cars, she would abduct the Thomas twins. The problem was the Amber Alert for the twins was sent out quite a few hours later. This is something that was addressed in the original video, but it was discovered that during that time, where nobody knew this was even an abduction or even something to look out for, an employee at a Dayton Park and Go was sitting there talking to Nala for quite a long time. She was asking directions to the very airport where she would dump Kair. The employee was saying that Nala was very calm speaking to them, and if they would have known she was on the run, they would have kept her there long enough to call the police to come and get her. But they had no idea who she was. They didn't see this baby, so they watched her as she went on her way. And thankfully, he was found by a good bystander. Now, Kair was eventually found as well, as you know, but the truth about how he was found didn't come out when the news began reporting on it. We discussed in my video that the 2 cousins from Indianapolis had gone on their own searching for this baby because they felt like they could do it faster, and they were really worried because there was a snowstorm coming. And so they would end up being the ones to go to that local Papa John's, find him in the car, and call the police. However, the news had started reporting that the officers were searching and they rescued the child, and that they were doing all they could, and basically giving all the credit to the officers.
First thing went through my mind was, thank God we found baby Kair. He's alive and well. And my first instinct was I wanted to hold him, put my arms around him, and just make sure that he was okay.
I open up the front door, I look inside, and I see the baby legs, and I smell this foul smell. Instantly, I thought the baby had passed away. So I'm screaming like, it's not good, it's not good.
And you can actually see one of the cousins in the back of the picture of the officer holding Kair that went viral online. But it turned out that the charges from the 2 accidents where Nala was put into the hospital, that was sent to the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office 4 days after the Thomas twins were abducted. So it was not even being looked at yet when the Thomas twins were taken. It appeared as though Nala's history proved that this was something she frequently did. She liked to steal cars for whatever reason. And maybe if it would have, been a process that was faster, she wouldn't have been out and free at the time when she abducted these twins. But this only adds to the question that has been on everybody's mind since the abduction of Kair and Kair, and that is, did she know that those boys were in the car that day? Was she stealing the car that was left running and did not know that they were in the back seat until it was too late? Or did she understand what she was doing when she got in that car? It's unknown though if we will ever get the truth due to the possible underlying mental illness that Nala appears to be suffering from. As much of a miracle as it was that this abduction became a survival story, we know now that the family is dealing with a tragedy after merely escaping one just a month prior. And as of Monday, January 30th of 2023, the Franklin County Coroner's Office did a medical exam on Kair, but told the media that it would take around 36 months to issue the final autopsy report. They will not release the preliminary report. Now, the Franklin County Child Protective Services, who have dealt with Nala in the past and her children, have said that they were not contacted in regards to the Thomas family with the abduction or with Kair's death death. There's no current case against the Thomas family, nor any other previous cases that would lead them to believe that there was an issue within the Thomas family. However, Kair's death will allegedly go under review with the Franklin County Child Fatality Review Board, which is made up of members of the coroner's office, law enforcement, child services, schools, hospitals, and they basically go in and look for trends, risk factors, gaps in the community systems, and possible system improvements so that this doesn't occur again. And although we do not know the exact cause of death at this moment, this could have been just a tragic accident where there is no foul play involved. And I know that with true crime, we often go to the worst possible thought that either this kidnapping caused this death or the family caused this death. And before we go there, before we make any assumptions about a grieving family, let's wait to see what comes from the autopsy. For now, this is a family who believed that they had overcome the worst kind of pain, came out the other side, only for that relief to be ripped away and for grief to replace it once again. And this time, a much more permanent grief. And so I just want to send the family a lot of love and healing and support, and I hope you can too down below. I know it's really hard when something like this happens and you look for someone to blame. If it is an accident, often accidents leave people feeling very empty and with no one to point a finger at. It angers many. But we don't want to point that finger without any evidence. Like I said, this is not what I wanted to come to you and update you with. This really was a wonderful survivor story. But I think that, we need to acknowledge what did happen and make sure that Kair Thomas's little life is known. Do you think it's possible that the kidnapping did have something to do with why he would eventually pass away? Some sort of internal, maybe medical element that the doctors didn't catch from being left outside? Could this have just been a feeding accident? Could this have been a seizure as his mother believed it was? And at that, I can't even imagine watching your baby having a seizure and not being able to do anything about it, doing everything possible that you know how to do, but still not being able to save them. I'm distraught that this is what I have to come back and tell you guys, but I know that some of you had come back to that video and let me know what happened, coming back and saying the happy ending actually didn't last is difficult, but you guys deserve to hear the truth, to keep being updated. And so, in a few months, when the autopsy report comes out or Nala goes to trial, I would love to keep you updated on this case and everything that may come. I think the best thing we can do is just be open and loving and supportive. Don't forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.